Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA Show. I'm Dave DeFore. It's Wednesday. We got a new day and a new time. We're coming out on Wednesdays this season. This is, of course, Nerder. She wrote, joining me as they do each and every week, Mo DeKeel and Seth Partnow. What season is this now for us, guys? Is this season 4? Season 5?
I thought we established this last episode.
I don't remember.
Five. We talked about this.
Start of
we talked about
5.
Consistency.
Yeah.
So new day, same show.
That's right. Continuity. We are going to do the same show where we dig into, a little bit deeper. And this week is season preview week here, just like it is everywhere else. And we decided we'd do a little something fun. So we came up with questions to which the answers may determine the entire season. Thought this would be a good way to sort of take a 35,000 foot view of the upcoming season and let's see how we feel right now, a week before we get any regular season games. So we got to jump right in because we got a lot to get to. And right off the bat, this one's kind of a funny one. Guys, do you think the flopping rules are actually going to work? Or is this more of a PR thing? And by the time we get to Christmas, no one's being called for any technicals or any fines or anything like that?
So there's two parts to that question. One, yes, this is a PR move. This is a PR move the same way that the rest rules are much more PR than a game facing. I think you can see over the course of NBA history that there's oftentimes a case where, for example, a couple of years ago, there was an emphasis on cracking down on traveling and palming and stuff like that. And if you looked at the both per game, per possession numbers on those calls, they were way elevated for about the first 2 weeks of the season. Over the next 2 weeks, it sort of tapered off a little bit. And then by a month into the season, it was sort of at long-term trend level. So I would expect to see a lot of them called at the start of the year. I would be surprised if we are still seeing them called 2 months into the season.
I'm going to go the other way on this one. And I'm going to just say when they did originally do the fines, we eventually saw a decrease in flopping. When they would do the warnings, the fines, and publicize it and all that stuff, we did see a decrease in flopping. What happened is we stopped doing that. It wasn't announced, but it just stopped, and then the flopping continued to climb back up. So I'm actually more inclined to think this is going to work. I mean, they have to enforce it. I don't know if they'll enforce it a ton in game, the way Seth was saying it. But as soon as you start taking guys' money, yeah, the flopping will go down a little bit. There'll be a little more of that.
It seems like this is also a little bit of the referees, right? Because shouldn't there be, I don't know about a punishment. I'm not like a punishment guy, but there needs to be something for the refs that are continuously fooled by the floppers. If the refs didn't reward the behavior would not exist. It's like, my dog sits next to the table when I eat dinner, and if I feed him from the table, I'm reinforcing a bad behavior. And so shouldn't maybe we do something with the referees? Like maybe there's a metric out there for how many times you get fooled on a flop.
That raises some interesting questions in how much should the refs be reffing a player or not? I think we've all been frustrated. How do you keep getting fooled by the same guy over and over again? Should the refs have a scouting report on a player, or should they call the game in front of them? That on its face, of course they should know, but at the same time, then all of a sudden you're reffing reputation instead of what actually happens, and that opens its own can of worms. And for better or worse, the NBA has very much moved towards trying to have like objective uniformity and stuff like that, and saying, well, James Harden, he's a head snapper, so that's not a foul. Kind of goes against that.
Yeah, I like the idea. I just don't know how you pull it off. I just think my view, we talked about this a long time ago, but like my view of refs is their job is to just manage the game and the flow of the game, to be game managers more than refs in that sense. And I think that's kind of keeping the flow of the game and understanding the flow and how everything's rolling with it. I do think, though, the NBA needs to do a better job, and it'll suck for the refs, but they need to do a better job of like, yeah, no, the ref screwed up there. And it's not the 2-minute report or whatnot, but like they kind of do it, but it's all subtly, right? Like
Yeah,
the
just
ref
get on the
says,
bat phone from Secaucus and call it in. Hey, that's a flop. You know, we need
Yeah.
we need the commissioner's office calling in every single time that there's a flop in a game.
but no, like that's not what I'm talking about. Like I'm not even talking about in the moment in the game. I'm talking about the broader view of it, though, of just like they need to kind of provide more transparency. And when the refs mess up like a massive call, there needs to be, we need to know what happens to them behind the scenes. If I'm bad at my job, or whatever, any job, you're bad at it, eventually you no longer get to do the job. But we have too many refs that continue to do the job for so long, even though they're bad at it. And I think that's something that the NBA might need to be more on top of in terms of that. But also a lot of that also comes into developing the refs better. And I don't think that's something they do a great job. They try, but I don't think they do a real great job of it.
You guys ready for question 2, or you got a little bit more on flopping?
No, let's talk more about refs before the season starts.
The whole
starting us out.
Everybody's
hot,
doing season previews. We're doing referee.
Do you want my takes on the VAR in the Premier League? Because I have those too.
No, actually, we don't.
All
okay.
replays should be banned.
Next, I agree with that. Spirit of the game. Next question. Have we reached peak offense? Last season, NBA teams averaged a 114.8 offensive rating, highest ever by 2.5 points. Seth, can the number just keep going up or what?
Yes, it could. I think it's it's a function partially of how the game is officiated. I think one of our bugaboos on this show for a number of years has been the leniency with which people have been allowed to set, shall we say, wide, perhaps moving, perhaps sliding, perhaps pulling guard screens. Yeah. So that's part of it. It's, last year the league shot the ball pretty well. I think there's some variance there year to year. But I don't know. I mean, it's both strategically and from an officiating standpoint, is defense going to catch up?
This goes back to what I say about defenses all the time. They've stopped being creative. They stopped trying to do things. Shout out to Mark Dagnall in OKC, with the late switches and whatnot. But defenses have become entirely too predictable. We know all the rotations. We know all the coverages you're going to be in. Coaches have stopped trying to be creative, and it allows offenses to know exactly where they need to attack, where their shots are coming from, how to get to those shots. And I think that's a massive problem there. I think the creativity on the defensive end is not caught up to the offensive end, and I'm not sure if the coaches have the appetite to do that. And it's hard, but figure it out.
How much of this is coaches and how much of it is players? Okay, because I mean, look, I know World Cup is fresh in our minds because it's the last basketball we just watched, but obviously that's more playoff style basketball. But you had teams playing 3-4 different pick and roll coverages, and how often in an NBA game do you see anything? Maybe you're seeing 2, right? You're seeing switch, and maybe they're going to go over and play straight up, but you don't see a lot of mixing of coverages anymore. I don't know if that's a coaching thing or a player thing. Like, how much of it is players are so hyper offensive focused that the defense just falls by the wayside?
I think it's both, but I think it's more coaching, not drilling it into the players. And I think this also goes as far back to the way we value these kids in AAU, in high school, in college, and whatnot. Like, we don't focus on defense. We really don't. Like, that's just the deal, I always scream about it, one-way player and all of that stuff. And that's kind of the deal where we're at now. But I think coaches are not doing a good job of drilling this stuff down, because the players will do it if you put it into drills and repeat it and shell drill it over and over again, do all the things there and walk through it over and over again. And they'll do it in the games. But whether they do it well, whole different story. That's a different debate. But we're not even giving them the chance to.
I think there's also a degree of it's almost self-fulfilling and self-reinforcing in that in an environment where everyone is scoring 110, 115, 120 a game. You got to keep up. And so then, all right, we can play this. It's maybe not fair to either player, but it's like, all right, I can either play George Niang or Torrey Craig. Which one's it going to be? And I think with everyone feeling like they have to keep up, I think the more offense leaning player has been winning that debate. And that causes offense to increase for two reasons. One, you have a better offensive player on the floor. One, on defense, you have a worse defensive player on the floor. So it's sort of it's almost to some degree a collection of everyone sort of making that selection towards the offensive player a little bit more because they feel they have to keep up.
Well, if you look at the teams that are winning, it's very much about, can you score no matter what? Like, can you just get a bucket every single time you need it? And is your defense good enough? And oftentimes it's about, if the good enough defense meets an offense that's not elite, right, then they can win that matchup. But it's not been like this lockdown defense.
No, I'm fighting that there a little bit, Dave. I mean, listen, the Nuggets were solid defensively.
They were solid.
Oh, no.
But the story was their offense. They could score.
That's all we talk about, Dave. That's all we talk about. That's my point. Right? It's the phrase, offense gets the glory. That's all people talk about. That's all the casual fans understand, because understanding defense is hard and having that idea of it. But the Nuggets, very good defensively. The Miami Heat were good defensively. That's the two teams that got to the finals in that last year. We go back and Golden State, a good defensive team with a freaking unbelievable defensive player type of guy in Draymond Green. Like, it's just, but all we focus on, because it's easy, is the offense. So it's not just about, you have to be able to score regularly. That's no question about that. But you also got to get stops. That's how the wins happen. And I think that's the thing there. And that's why the consecutive stuff matters and all of that stuff. And the teams that are really good are the ones that can get consecutive stops. And we haven't seen a team that's all offense win a championship with no defense. I mean,
the Kings were out of the playoffs. I mean, you have to be able to defend at a certain level, obviously, to have success in the playoffs. But I just feel like, at least from what we see personnel wise, I tend to agree with Seth that the offensive players tend to win out.
And that's, to be clear, that's a regular season. Like, you see that dynamic change a little bit in the postseason when we start to dial in a little bit more and dissect. This is how we're stopping their pet actions, their best players. We're forcing this guy left. We're forcing him to put the ball on the floor. We're whatever else we're doing. We're showing him double teams or multiple different looks or whatever. The kinds of stuff that maybe just doesn't happen when you're playing 3-4 games a week.
That's because the teams are lazy now. That's the push. They don't practice as much. You can't drill down and practice. I'm honestly at the point now where I think we've gone way too far, teams in general, with not practicing. I'll be interested to see what the Clippers do this year, because they're really kind of trying to do more in that sense, in terms of practicing and whatnot. And the debate of rest over practice has become a thing, where I think this is an important thing to establish there. And that's how you put in your defensive principles. Because, it's easy. Go out there and get me 25, and just go. But like on defense, it's hard. And I think that's part of the reason also why it's more a regular season thing than a playoff thing. Because in the playoffs, you have more of that. I honestly think some of this is just teams have gotten lazy.
This is something that's come up as the league has sort of has done a good job of removing back-to-back, has reduced the desire to have like intense practice days, because what you would have, you play 2 back-to-back games, you'd have 2 or 3 days off. There's a time to fit. You'd have a day off after the back-to-back, an intense practice day the next day, and then keep it going. Whereas you've got game, light practice, game, light practice, game, and so on like that. You don't actually have that slightly larger window.
Yeah, but I also think this is something you can do in light practices. How many practices have you been into where it's been 85% offense, 15% defense? Like, this is stuff you can go at 25%. You can walk through how we're going to show on this play. how we want to help here, how we want to play drop in this. And you can walk through it just like you can in offensive play. But a lot of the teams I've been on, 85% offense. We talk about the defense and that's about it. Like, that's a big one there.
I think there's a coming technological solution here. In that I think part of the reason you do that is yes, you can do that, but that's sort of inefficient in terms of, you work on offense. If you're doing this on defense, it's a lot of most guys just kind of watching. Whereas if you're doing, all right, we're going to do some shooting drills, we're going to do some form breaks where you got everyone up and moving, getting reps. I think if we start to get in more of the use of some VR technology and stuff like that to get mental reps in sort of the defensive recognition and stuff like that, I think that technology is progressing, is coming. And I think that might be a way the teams that start to figure out how to implement that to sort of maybe not direct practice time, but more kind of one-on-one, one-on-two small groups with assistant coaches and video people to get with individual players and drill some of those defensive reps that way. I think that's something that could possibly help equalize some of what you're talking about, Mo.
Or they could just practice defense. All right, I'm gonna go to the next question. Guys,
very
all right,
very nerdery question, by the way. That number 2 was
absolutely. Okay, this one's a little bit more fun, but also who knows? Guys, what happens if Victor Wembanyama is a top 15 player day one? This guy is incredible. We're already seeing him do incredible things in the preseason. It's unlikely that he's a top 15 player, but maybe. Does anything change?
When you say anything change, what are you asking?
So, okay, none of us expect him to play more than 55, 60 games this season, right? But what if he's like just ready to win right now? Can the San Antonio Spurs put together a package and get the next disgruntled guy or the guy who's available and pair with them? Like, is there a scenario in which he is just too good and they have to start trying to win now because why not?
I think their offseason sort of answered that question already. I think they were very conservative this offseason. And in some ways, I think that's smart because I think the temptation would be there. Like they suddenly they're 30 games into the season and they're 14-16, and he's like getting legit all-star buzz. There's going to be that tendency to want to, but they're not ready to win a title this year, no matter how good he is.
Right.
And I think
title playoffs. They're not even ready to make the playoffs this year.
I mean, what if he's a top 15 guy and they're in that play-in discussion? You know, I mean, do they go for it?
I mean, the whole thing is, I think the thing it was there was the play in a preseason game the other day where he kind of catches an alley-oop from like 9 feet away from the basket over Thomas Bryant, and the look on Bryant's face he gives to the bench as he runs down the court. I think that the whole league is going to feel like, what the hell just happened? I think there's going to be a lot of that this year, and it's going to be exciting. But I think that them being slightly judicious this offseason and sort of almost taking that off the table by not being more aggressive this offseason, I think is probably better for them long term.
Of course,
than trying to be.
We don't want better. We want fun.
No. First off, you mixed up your dunk, Seth, which isn't surprising because there were so many freaking amazing plays in that game. I just want to be clear about this one. The alley-oop was off of a give and go where he initiated the offense, hit the wing, and then ran down and then basically just cut down the lane and got the lob. The one you're talking about where Bryant looked around going like, what the fuck, was when he got dunked on by like basically the dude was at the dotted lines. And he just go gadget arms action there. This dude's amazing. We're going to have nights where we're just going to be in awe of like all the things he's doing. I just dropped a one more thing just on his defensive range and what he can do defensively. It's amazing. But this team, even if he's a top 15 player, okay, they'll still be 12th in the West. Like this, the West is brutal. This team is not well equipped. I mean, they're working on figuring out who works around him.
Sure.
Like this is a exploration season for them. We can put a explorer hat on Pop as they sail through the season and try to figure out what they're going to need around Wembanyama. But I think that's the deal there. I think there's no circumstances where I think they feel like they're going to go for it in any instance.
I mean, I think this sounds strange since we're talking about a guy who's 7'5", but I think determining whether he's a 4 or a 5 is kind of a pretty key thing. Like if given he's never going to be a huge bulky guy, if he has the movement skills and the shooting skills to play the 4, at least spend a decent amount of time there, I think that's probably best long term. But the question is, does he have kind of the mobility and the skill level to do that? I think that's kind of the biggest question they have to answer. And then sort of like, all right, do we need our Steven Adams type to like, obviously I think
that's what they want, right?
Yeah.
Like they want to pair him with someone, Steven Adams, Jonas Valanciunas, someone like that. I actually do think that's what they want.
They don't even need that. They have Jeremy Sohan. That's who's going to do it.
1 through 5, yeah.
That's who's going to do the dirty work for them. That dude pairs perfectly with Wembanyama and doing all the dirty work and those things. He's a little bit small, I understand that, and that's a bit of a concern. But you know what? He just has to hold up long enough for Wemby to come over from the weak side. And by the way, he doesn't have to come that far.
He didn't have to go far.
He could just put his arm out by standing at the other block. Like
my dream, all I want, guys, I want a Bol reclamation project in San Antonio so we can have Bol and Victor Wembanyama just stand arm to arm. It's the perfect defense. Tell me I'm wrong. They can touch hands across the lane. There no fear of a 3 seconds violation. No counting 2.9. Doesn't matter. By the way, speaking of mobility, did you guys see that like mid-range fadeaway he hit in the game, Victor Wembanyama?
Yes.
I mean, this guy, like, never seen anything like this ever.
He has shades of Kevin Durant in his game. Like, that's the thing. And it's just the amount of times he's going to go to the free throw line where guys are trying to get at his shot and hit him on the arm is going to be crazy. And then when they adjust and it's going to turn into, well, we have to get it before before he gets the ball above his shoulders, the fouls they're going to get for just reaching. He's going to live at the line at one point.
Yeah. Okay, guys, next question. Do the Warriors' chances for another title rely on Jonathan Kuminga taking a leap? Like, are we at that point for the Warriors?
No,
we're
not. It relies more on what can Chris Paul do off the bench for them. And it relies more on the health of guys like Draymond and Kevon Looney. It would. Don't get me wrong now. If Jonathan Kuminga takes a leap, massive help. Massive help. But I don't think it's something that I would say they rely on. I mean, let me just be pretty clear. Steph Curry has never played with a passer like Chris Paul. Just never. It's just not. I mean, Draymond Green's a good passer. He's never played with a dude that's going to literally put the ball in his shooting pocket 99 out of 100 times. And I think that says a lot. And I think that's an important aspect there with what you're looking at in terms of them, offensively. Yes, a lot of questions for them defensively when the two of them are on the court together. But I think there's a lot that they can do there with that. Kuminga would be helpful, but I don't look at it as like, if he doesn't take a leap, I'm cursing a lot today. I got to cut this back.
So I do think that, first of all, good self-awareness, Mo. I do worry about the Warriors being under athletic if they're not in a situation where they feel like they can rely on Kuminga and or Moses Moody in playoff situations. I think that we've seen in recent years teams that are otherwise pretty good be under athletic in sort of that mid-sized area, and that being exploitable in the playoffs. I mean, I think that's frankly my biggest worry about the Bucks coming into the season. I think we'll talk about them next, but it does worry about them a little bit. The other part is, it's interesting because while Chris Paul has never really played in, at least not, the last decade or so has not really played in offenses with lots of movement. He has played effectively with movement shooters. Now I think it's very kind to JJ Redick to make the comparison between Redick and Steph Curry, but I mean, I think that was like that on those Clipper teams, Mo, like the movement on the offense was JJ Redick and everybody else was kind of static. So how does Chris Paul get integrated into the Warriors offense, which has been very movement based? I'll be interested to see that. I think he can figure it out. And it probably is easier for him at his age doing it for 25 minutes a game rather than 35. But we'll see. But I do think that they need that sort of athleticism and wing size and speed, especially as I think Clay is almost more of a 4 now. And I think he's well past time where he's like a defensive stopper wing. And them not having that, I think, when you look at who they have to go through in the West or potentially in the finals, that would be a huge miss if they did not have that.
Yeah, but that's where Andrew Wiggins comes in. That's the guy. That's who's replacing Clay on that defensive stopper sort of position. And yes, you're right about Chris Paul being more of a static player, and then everybody running around him. Still going to work. Curry's still going to run around him, and God help you on the relocation. When Curry does give up the ball, Chris is going to find a way to get. Now they have another guy that's going to get him the ball even better. That's good luck.
Also underrated, active, not to say dirty screen setter.
Perfect Warrior player.
Okay. Wait. All right, let me ask you guys about Chris Paul. Would you guys say that Chris Paul is a hesitant shooter at this point, or at least a reticent shooter? Like he's not really a volume guy anymore. We talked a lot about the last 2 years in Phoenix where he was even passing up some open looks. He had the shoulder issue. Is that a concern for them at all to have essentially lineups where you're going to have 3 non-shooters in Looney, Draymond, and Chris Paul? He's not a non-shooter. That might be a bit strong on Chris Paul. If he's open, he's going to take it.
That's an extreme there. He knows he's got to take some of those shots, but he also understands like, hey, I'm playing with some of the best shooters on the planet, mainly Steph, and we'll see what Clay looks like this year. I probably am better served getting them a shot. Them contested might be a little bit better, or semi-contested versus some of the looks I will get in that regard. There will be some hesitation with him, and it's not always good. There are times where it's like, yo, you got to shoot that shot. That's kind of the end all be all with that. But I'm not worried about that with him in that regard, because I also think part of the problems for the Warriors last year was Jordan Poole taking shots he shouldn't have.
Well, that's true. You'd rather have somebody, keep it in the holster, right? All right, next question, guys. We think that both Milwaukee and Boston are the 2 best teams in the East in some order. We don't know yet, but injury aside, what has to happen for a team other than Milwaukee or Boston to make it out of the East? What is the key to the rest of the East beating Milwaukee and Boston?
I think it's Evan Mobley taking a massive leap forward offensively. I think it's the Cavs figuring out their offense, and that Mobley should probably be more of their second option. And Donovan Mitchell should be a insurance in case Glass, we need you to bail us out type of guy. I don't know how Mitchell would feel about that. I think that's an important one.
But
but I think that's something I'm looking at as somebody that can kind of maybe crash that party. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. I just don't see how you guys crash the party all that much. I think you'll be a little bit better than last year, but not much. I'm afraid to figure out what Miami is. Like, I don't know, I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. I know they lost some guys, but I don't think they'll be as, they're somewhere in the middle of what they were last year. And I think that's a weird one. After that, I don't see anybody else in the East really contending. And that's not to say those 2 teams don't have massive weaknesses.
I know Philly's got a ton of questions, obviously, because they still, as of today, still have James Harden, who's not, really doing anything with
He
them.
Didn't even show up today at practice.
Didn't show up. So it's hard to even think about Philly, but Let's think about Philly a little bit. I mean, they've got Embiid, who, is maybe the third best player in the East, or first, depending on how you rank him. He was the MVP last year. They still got Maxey. We think they'll probably still have Tobias Harris. I mean, they've got an okay team, and you could see if they could get a couple of decent role players for James Harden, that's not a bad team. You give them any shot whatsoever.
No. I'm sorry. Like we've been down this road with them before, and now they're in this weird toxic situation. I don't think you're going to get a ton of value for James Harden if you do trade him. I think if you get him, he's super disgruntled. I think even then, just looking at this team, I don't have a lot of faith in them, even if everything was hunky dory. Like we've seen the playoff failures over and over again at this point, and it's just, I'm sorry, I cannot. They're in the prove it to me category, plain and simple.
Seth, do you see the Cavs as the next best shot to win the East?
I think for understandable reasons, I think Philly is the third best team in the East, and we're short on them for understandable reasons. But I think if in terms of what they look like, if everything goes right, it's on the level of those first two teams. It just we kind of have our understandable and justified doubts about things going right. I don't know. Do we want to get wild and start?
Hold on. Before you get wild and freaky,
yeah.
How many things has to go right for Philly versus how many things has to go right for Boston and Milwaukee? Like their list is so much longer.
Definitely.
And that's why, and that's why I just even longer than
and
Cleveland's,
a new coach,
in my opinion,
right? Like new coach. There's a lot of uphill battle.
I mean, I'll say it.
Although
so
Adrian Griffin's a new coach in Milwaukee too.
Yeah, I'll say it so Mo doesn't have to. I think that is a reason to have more rather than less faith in the Sixers getting things right this year. In this case,
I don't know. I think I'm more with Mo on the coaching situation there. Is there? I mean.
No, Mo agrees with me.
I agree with Seth. I agree with Seth. He was
oh.
saving me from saying
it is better. Yes, it is a better situation. I don't know if it's ideal. Let's get a little wild then, Seth. It's not gonna. I mean, listen.
I mean, if we're getting I don't know.
We're saying Orlando makes a trade for James Harden.
Mikal Bridges Mikal Bridges is the guy he showed he was in Brooklyn in the back half of last year, and Ben Simmons shows up, but he's had moments in the preseason. He shows up and is sort of like the Draymond Green light version of himself, and Nick Claxton plays at a deep player of the year level, and
Cam Thomas.
Let's get weird. Let's get
25 point a game scorer. Yeah,
calm down.
I like it. I like
bringing Cam Thomas into this. You went too far. But
I have a question for you, Dave.
Uh-oh.
Why do you and everybody else constantly want to wish evil on Orlando by always trading them some terrible point guard that's not going to work for Banchero, that's not going to work for Franz Wagner? No. But why? Everybody.
I wanted him to have Drew Holiday.
Yeah,
Drew Holiday in Orlando would have just been fantastic, right?
Great.
But James
just
Harden
threw Harden at them.
Well, here's the deal. James Harden was actually really good last season. It gets lost because he had a few bad playoff games, but he was excellent in the regular season last year. He did exactly what they needed him to do. I mean, he was, a borderline all NBA player last year. And I just think if you could add a guy like that to a young team like Orlando that shows promise, you can go a long way. You can win a bunch of games. That's right.
No. You don't even believe that yourself.
How are the strip clubs in Orlando? Do we know?
You couldn't even say that yourself without doing the high pitched part, which is your tell when you don't believe, Dave. That's all I'm saying. It's we know, but here's the thing, man. Yes, James Harden had a good season last year, tapered off a little bit after the All-Star break. If we're going to be honest with all these things, I would say besides one or two good games in the playoffs, I wouldn't say he had a few bad games. I said he had a very James Harden typical playoffs in that regard of when he was needed most, he was nowhere to be found. I think the things for me with Harden is that's not the team for him. Harden wants to play one way and one way only. And that's part of the reason why it's the trade demand. It's not just the money. He wants to play hardened ball. And I think that's the problem. And that's what I'm afraid of if he goes to Orlando or some young team. He gets to play hardened ball, and we don't get the development that we need from these young kids in Orlando.
I mean, I'm with you. Listen, it's more fun if these guys have a chance to develop, but also I'm ready for them to make the top 6. I want to see them in the playoffs because we need some youth in the playoffs. Okay, let's get to the last question, because I think this one is sort of, I'm not going to say it's going to determine the season, but it's what I've been thinking about quite a bit this summer, and especially when you think about the Nuggets. Like, we know that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, should be the 3-time reigning MVP. We saw what Jamal Murray did in the playoffs after he was fully recovered from that ACL. We know who he is. Is Michael Porter Jr. the key to the Nuggets going back-to-back, guys?
I really think he is. And by key, like, obviously Jokic matters the whole time. I mean, is if they don't have Jokic, it doesn't matter. If they lose Murray, it doesn't matter. Like, the question doesn't matter. The road to the finals is damn near impossible at that point. But in the terms of repeating, he is so critical, because I think, one, if he has a larger role in the offense, that takes pressure off of Murray and Jokic throughout the season and kind of allows them to rest a little bit. The other thing too, and we were kind of talking about this before, Dave, and you know, it might be, can he accept being Manu Ginobili? Like, honestly, like, when you look at the Nuggets, their weakness is their bench. They don't have a lot of depth. They lost Bruce Brown, so now there's a hole at that position. Is Christian Brown gonna take that spot? You do that, you move him, you move Porter to the bench. You at least have more offensive firepower coming off the bench and have that ability to have more staggering sort of attack offensively. And the question is he going to get a lot of touches when he's in the starting unit? Like, it's an important thing of how they handle him, how he handles it, and how everything works around him. I think it's a huge question and an important one that needs to be answered by Denver.
So this is an interesting situation in that he's not up for a new contract soon. He showed a lot of growth in the everything else area of his game last year. I mean, there were a number of games in the playoffs last year where he didn't shoot the ball well, where we thought he played pretty well. And that was sort of inconceivable to say that about Michael Porter Jr. for most of his career. And they won the title. So the question is, how is there potential for sort of dodging the disease of more in that case, where, hey, this is pretty good. Like, I can fit in wherever, and there's going to be nights where we call on me, and there's going to be nights where we don't, and this is great because we're right there again. I kind of think that the key for them, though, is still Aaron Gordon. I think he was I think his sort of defensive Swiss Army-ness was undersold last year, and it worked in part because Porter was credible on that end, but he was credible in sort of picking up the leftovers of whatever. All right, well, okay, Aaron, you got that guy. And it was anyone 1 through 5. And, him continuing to do that, him staying healthy, him continuing to be that force, him continuing to, do that defensively and then compete in transition the other end. That was a big part of their offense, I thought, last year, was sort of his early rim runs. So I do think that if we're talking like, the unheralded, maybe I'm just saying sort by third best player after Jokic and Murray, but I think that's still Gordon, even though he does it in a way that's never going to sort of get him the praise as someone with Porter's offensive explosiveness has.
But I think the thing about Aaron Gordon is this is all the stuff we know he can do. And that's like, this is what I expect from Aaron Gordon. Right? Like, that's why the difference for me, that's not a question of what you just described, everything Aaron Gordon brought to the table, but that's not the question I'm asking. The question I'm asking is, it's, if Porter becomes the third best player and supplants Gordon in that area, then
it's over.
It's over. It's a whole different game.
Yeah.
There, right. And that's actually what needs to happen. It's for them they're having a dynastic view of things. That's what needs to happen.
If his floor game all next season is kind of what it was through the back half of the playoffs next year, or was in the back sort of the last 2.5 series, I'd say last year. If his general floor game is at that level all season, good luck.
That's my point.
They have the best starting five in the league. As far as there's no holes, there's no question marks. Like you kind of know this is the floor, at least highest floor, I would say. Their ceiling is also championship level. So
I'd say they're probably them and Boston are probably right there in terms of the best starting five. I think Boston has a lot of no holes in their sort of their position. I have questions about other
age.
things for Boston.
Yeah.
No, not even that. But like we that's another podcast for another time.
Yeah.
But like
perhaps even next week.
Maybe.
Possibly. But I think that is those are probably the two best starting fives, and it's probably like, like right next to each other. With all of that. So, but they're right there. Yeah, I mean, they're the top team in the West. Like, to me, it's no question.
Well, guys, we got through all the questions to kind of set the stage for the season. Anything on your mind as we wrap up our last show of the summer? Seth is sneezing.
Summer in October. Okay.
Seth's playing sick, by the way. Flu game for Seth. So, any final thoughts to close the books on the offseason?
Go check out the latest One Mo thing on Victor Wembanyama's defensive range and how that length is just going to be a problem for
it's
offensive
long.
Players.
Spoiler alert. It's very long.
I'm excited for I'm in general excited for the rivalry to be back on the court. I'm tired of sources and ready for basketball.
It's kind of the same cycle we go through every summer. James Harden hangs out in Houston instead of practicing with his team. We get sourced to death, and we all just want to watch basketball. So for Seth and Mo, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you guys next week where we actually have games to talk about right here on the Athletic NBA Show.